Good morning, everybody. Let me stand over here. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we can all agree that we sit in a region that is at the forefront of some of the most iconic and progressive real estate developments in the world. Just to mention a couple, and specifically going into food and beverage, for those of you who saw me on Monday, today's presentation will be data more targeted to food and beverage. So we've got a couple of high-level stats over here. 62 billion USD by 2030, the value of the food and beverage market in the GCC. That's a 6.1 predicted compound annual growth rate. We're talking about 110 billion in KSA alone being invested. Dubai by 2025 will surpass 13,000 F&B relevant establishments. We're talking about Dubai being one of the cities with the highest average spend per tourists in the world. And in 2023, an increase of 47% in spend in the market on the high-end sector. These are just some numbers that, in my opinion, in our opinion, tell a story of this sort of unparalleled growth. And for us, this is really cementing our region in what we believe to be the future of hospitality. And I'd like to go into F&B specifically on that front. Now, despite all of these promising conditions, let's say, and having access to some of the world's best talent, we still believe that planning and building many of these developments is being done in the region with limited actionable data. That's what we'd like to talk about today. How is it possible that we're still planning some of these developments based on previous successes, based on benchmarks, surveys, and in some cases, or most cases, gut instinct? To tell you a little bit about ourselves, Forsite Creative, we are a company with over 200 projects in the region for the last 10 years, and we've seen multiple different stages of the project trajectories from a development stage, planning stage, and also operation stage. We have everything from F&B master planning down to concept creation, interior design, branding, back-of-house design. And we've realized as a company a couple of years ago that we're in a pivotal moment of change where all around the world, data is reshaping decision-making. And that's when we asked ourselves, how are we going to harness the power of data to really ignite and elevate how we make decisions in the future? At that point, we created Forsite Data. This was about 2 years ago. And we'd like to show you today some examples of how Forsite Data can potentially help make decisions for yourselves in this region. So what we typically do is take a sample, take a user case. This changes. This is always bespoke. And what we've done in this specific case is pick over 120 restaurants that sit in 5-star and 4-star hotels in the waterfronts of Dubai. We've gone all the way from the creek down to blue waters, and we've added to that mixed-use developments with predominant F&B, and we've picked from those an additional about 100 F&B spaces within those 15 developments. That creates our target audience. Any digital profiles that have attended or visited or reviewed any of these places, we'd collect them, and then we'd follow everywhere else they go and collect all of those reviews as well, and then we aggregate all of the data to analyze it. This actually led us to 1.2 million sentiments that we have as our general data pool. And that's where we start experimenting, and that's where we can start utilizing the information to try to make decisions or identify key insights. To give you a quick overview of who these are, we're talking about 43% residents, 57% visitors, outside residents, or non-residents of the UAE, 56% male, 44% female. You see the age, the majority is between the 20s and the 40s, that's relatable. And if we see the top countries of origin, we're talking about KSA, UK, France, US. One of the first things to determine is who has the highest spending power when it comes to F&B. The way we do this is we take all of these digital profiles and then we segregate them into 4 quartiles, higher spending quartiles all the way down to lower spending quartiles. And here we can actually see that the residents, which is the light blue, have a higher spending pattern when it comes to food and beverage than the visitors from abroad. So that's one of the angles and strategies that's already been quite evident. If you target the residents, not only do you have more frequency, but you also typically have higher spending power than the visitors. We've looked into multiple times outside of that data set, outside of the waterfront, in some cases, what are other restaurants that are visited by this data set? And you can see here exposure. It's been used many times for brands who want to understand where else our audience goes to, or what kind of brand might be interesting for me to consider. We've got a couple of brand owners and operators over here. But more importantly, we can actually identify how often was the specific brand mentioned in a review, so that that actually adds more value to the brand goodwill and the brand awareness specifically. And in addition to frequency of mentions of brand, which we have in the horizontal axis, in the vertical axis, we would say the sentiment associated to that comment or that reference to the brand. Was it positive? Was it negative? And it gives you, on the top right quartile, brands that have been frequently mentioned by that audience and positively mentioned. So that's a great opportunity or way to identify for a specific audience what are brands that are liked and recognized. We can take the low spenders and the high spenders, or the lower quartile and the higher quartile, and then we do our sort of cuisine SWOT, as we call it. How often would there be a mention of a specific cuisine or brand associated to a cuisine, and what would be the sentiment around that? And then the top right quartile would give you basically what are the preferences, most frequently visited, and typically more satisfied in a specific market. If you see here the high spenders, you've got Mediterranean, Italian, American, Japanese. The low spenders go more Middle Eastern, fish and seafood, and then Japanese. Bottom left would give you most of the threats, typically not mentioned very frequently and very negatively, but it could also be transformed into an opportunity, depends how we see it. For that, you'd have to deep dive and actually analyze these specific cuisines, what are the low points and the topics that are associated to them that are actually driving this negative sentiment. We then typically like to understand, as we deep dive into the sentiments, which ones are the hard elements and which ones are the soft elements that people are referring to as topics. Hard elements are typically the ones that we want to make sure we get right in the first time. These would be higher capex kind of things, difficult to influence sometimes. Could be location, could be view, but it could go all the way down to interior design, parking, etc. Soft elements typically are the ones that we can really influence. Low-hanging fruits, operator influence, or things that we can change up without significantly long closure times. And then we try to ask ourselves, if we do a statistical impact study, from 0 to 100%, which one of these topics have a higher influence in the overall satisfaction of visitors versus residents, for example? We can see that typically soft elements have a higher impact on the satisfaction of an experience. This means what you do with the shell is a little bit less important than what you do within the shell of your F&B spaces, typically speaking. What I did on Monday was a different approach towards the overall hospitality hotel experience, and there we actually noticed that design of an overall hotel had a higher impact on satisfaction than the actual operations component or the soft elements, whilst within the F&B, that swaps. So that was quite interesting to see, and specifically for residents. Residents are much pickier on the soft components. Now, if you go to the hard elements, that would be for visitors more important. The design, the picture, the memory I'm going to take away with me back home. And then here we actually identify the 3 topics per category that's most important. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail. I want to leave space for Duncan for a Q&A at the end. So I'm going to go into this here. So that's how it looks. We've got in orange the hard elements, in white the soft elements, and we do a SWOT analysis here of the generic overall aggregated target audience. And we can see here interesting topics that are strengths of our market today. Accessibility, staff friendliness, service efficiency, concept, atmosphere, F&B quality, views. I'm not going to go into those, we've known those. We used to take smaller data sets before, now we've started taking larger data sets, and some interesting things start coming up, which I also think is a nice bridge into the next session. If we look into the opportunities quadrant, the top left quadrant, we start seeing safety for the first time as one of the things that people are actually really appreciating in the whole F&B districts around the waterfront. Operator, we've tried to identify lingo that would link people to the Ricas and Sunsets of this world. In some cases, the brand operators themselves. How often is that recognized? And you start seeing here, it's about 1% of the reviews that we've collected, 1.2 million sentiments, are addressing that. Entertainment as a huge opportunity. Special arrangements, brands. How often are people actually going to a specific F&B concept because it's associated to a brand or recognize the brand? Privacy, landscaping, and artwork. Those are the topics that are high sentiment when recognized, but not recognized sufficiently, and that could be actually an opportunity in the market. Now I'm going to talk about the ones in the bottom. We can all see those. typically. We were surprised that interior design was actually hitting so low, just below the average mark of satisfaction. Lighting, chefs associated, technology, definitely something to work on. And then you typically have parking, arrival experience, noise, air quality, etc. All of the things that we should just make sure that we get right every time we do restaurants. Now, what happens if we actually narrow it down to the high spender specifically? We like to see that there's a significant shift all of a sudden. If you're attracting the high spenders, things change. Chefs do become a little bit more important and something that they appreciate a bit more. Technology as well. Price point a little bit less relevant. But look at operator, look at brands, look at decor, artwork. All of these are coming up. Sorry, decor is coming down. F&B quality is something that the high spenders are actually less impressed with than the average aggregate sample, as well as service efficiency. Now, you might ask us, this is pretty much based on historic data, how can we use this to do some predictive analysis of what's going to happen? So this is what we've done and we can do in different shapes or forms. Try to aggregate these type of sentiments and cluster them into specific time frames. So everything that happened before 22, 22, 23, and 24. And then start showing what kind of increase there is in specific topics. You will still see that the highest likelihood of a high statistical impact on positive review are things like views, followed by interior design, increasing quite highly, accessibility and wayfinding, specifically because of the drive of the residents. But you start seeing additional ones, maybe now with the whole boom on entertainment, DJ and stages almost going 100% more important than it used to be a couple of years ago. What if we'd like to narrow it down to certain personas? So I need to speed up, I see I'm behind schedule. We could actually use AI textual analysis to understand, based on how people write or review or Google things, what kind of personas they are. And the options are limitless on how to do it. But here we show how certain specific soft elements have a different level of importance on specific personas. So if you're attracting the wellness seeker, you could actually use them, shortlist them, and identify what's most important for them. We see here digital nomads are more price sensitive, and also are more interested in food quality specifically. The sports enthusiasts, it's more about atmosphere and menu variety, and so on and so on. Last thing, and I finish up, we could also geotag these kind of overall digital profiles and their presence to say, okay, shortlist to Asian food lovers, for example, where do they currently go in a city? And where are the locations where they actually identify a good food quality ratio, for example? Or it could be good price quality ratio on Asian cuisine. And then based on that, we can identify scores of, let's say, high opportunity for a demand and supply gap. I hope this gives you a good insight of what could be done with data to actually drive our decisions in the future. Thank you very much. If you'd like to take a picture of this, you'll receive from us this report. And I know we're late, but Duncan has a question. I know. Can I give you this one?
Thank you. We're dealing with a lot of developers that are developing greenfield sites at the moment. So, for instance, a beach club with retail F&B in an hour and a half's drive outside of Dammam in KSA, as an example. How do we use this sort of technology to do a like-for-like data grab to predict what should go into what is technically right now an empty space?
That's an excellent question, Duncan. So the projects are bespoke on a case-per-case, and we like these challenging ones. I mean, we've had it with a lot of projects, Greenfield and KSA as well. We need to find what data is available and where we go from that. There's many different angles to take from there. Who are the most likely to go there? That could be maybe based on form of transportation and understanding of distance of travel and reachability, or understanding the USPs of a specific destinations, if those are set, and then try to translate from the nearby crowds. And those USPs could be elements that are yet to be influenced in certain components, such as the cuisine. So we don't know the cuisine, but we know that this Greenfield Beach Club project, it's all about beaches, it's all about sustainability, it's all about high-end design, and it's all about, let's just say, the French Riviera lifestyle. Who are the audiences, maybe within KSA, that go to the French Riviera, that do appreciate design, that do love beach clubs, etc.? Where are they? And then we would actually zoom out as much as necessary to make sure we capture a representative sample size, and then understand from their likes when they travel abroad or when they travel to similar destinations, what is it that they're looking for and what has the highest statistical likelihood of impacting positively their reviews. And then we would say that is what you want to base your strategy on. Thank you for the good question. Thank you very much, everybody. Oh, do we have time? Quickly, one more. Sorry, Jennifer.
Hi, I just wanted to know how, and maybe you don't want to reveal the secrets, but how you collect data so that the data is not biased.
We scrape data from Google. It's not a secret.
Okay, it's data scraping, okay.
We just scrape data from Google in large quantities.
So Google Analytics and you...
Information that's available from the front end or the back end of any kind of Google business, just to understand what it is, and then all the reviewers and everywhere they go, and then the businesses that they go to, etc. And we just start linking it, and it's all about how you actually organize it all, and how you actually train your AI to understand your lingo and what are the topics that are important or not important, and then, you know, how does AI understand that that comment was about an F&B operator and not a hotel operator? That's the kind of thing that we've been developing for 2 years. But the information is available for everybody. It's just go through the hassle of aggregating it and analyzing it.
Okay, amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.